A toy walkie-talkie shouldn't work after 11 years. It definitely shouldn't be transmitting a missing boy's voice, saying, "Grandpa, where are you?" over and over again. And when investigators traced the signal's origin, they discovered something that changed everything. The radio was transmitting from a location that didn't exist on any map. This is the story of Robert Mitchell, a 65-year-old retired teacher, and his 10-year-old grandson, Tommy. In the summer of 2013, they set out for what should have been a simple 3-day camping trip in the Rocky Mountain wilderness of Colorado. Robert had promised Tommy they'd find the perfect spot to test the boy's new walkie-talkie set, a bright yellow pair of radios Tommy had been excited about for weeks. They never came home. The search lasted 2 months. Rangers scoured every trail, every campsite, every hidden valley in the area. They found their car at the trailhead, their planned route marked clearly on Robert's map. But of Robert and Tommy themselves, nothing. No tent, no backpacks, no sign of where they might have gone or what might have happened to them. 11 years passed. The case grew cold, filed away with hundreds of other missing persons reports from America's vast wilderness areas. Robert's daughter Sarah had long since stopped hoping for answers. She'd accepted that her father and son had simply vanished. Then, on a crisp October morning in 2024, mountain climber Jake Morrison was attempting a solo ascent of a remote peak when his radio crackled to life. At first, he thought it was interference from a ranger station. Radio signals could bounce strangely off mountain faces, picking up transmissions from miles away. But this voice was different. Young, desperate. "Grandpa, where are you? Grandpa, where are you?" Jake stopped climbing. The transmission was clear, close, and it was repeating the same phrase over and over. He followed the signal, expecting to find a lost hiker or maybe some kids playing with radios. What he found instead, wedged high in a rocky crevice, was a small yellow walkie-talkie, weathered, faded, but somehow still transmitting. Jake called the authorities immediately. When Park Service investigators arrived, they ran the radio's serial number through their database. The results sent chills through the search team. It belonged to Tommy Mitchell, the boy who had disappeared with his grandfather 11 years earlier. But how was this possible? The radio had been exposed to 11 years of mountain weather. Snow, rain, freezing temperatures, scorching sun. The batteries should have died within days, maybe weeks at most. Yet here it was, broadcasting clear as day. The voice on the transmission was analyzed by audio experts. It matched Tommy's voice perfectly. The same 10-year-old boy who had vanished in 2013. But here's what made investigators' blood run cold. The voice hadn't aged. It was still the voice of a child, not the 21-year-old man Tommy would be today. "Grandpa, where are you? Grandpa, where are you?" The same words, spoken with the same urgency, over and over in an endless loop. When technical specialists attempted to trace the signal's origin, they discovered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about radio transmission. The signal wasn't coming from where Jake had found the physical radio. It was originating from coordinates that, according to every map and GPS system they checked, didn't exist. The coordinates pointed to empty air, a space between two mountain peaks where no landmass should be. Satellite imagery showed nothing but sky. Ground-penetrating radar detected no solid matter, yet the signal was definitely coming from those impossible coordinates. Rangers hiked to the area, Standing at the exact location the signal indicated, they found themselves on a narrow mountain ridge. There was nothing unusual about the spot. No cave, no hidden valley, no geological anomaly that might explain the mystery. But the radios still picked up Tommy's voice, clear and strong. "Grandpa, where are you?" The discovery of Tommy's walkie-talkie reignited the search for Robert and Tommy Mitchell. New search teams combed the area around where Jake had found the radio. They used ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and K9 units. They searched caves, crevices, and hidden valleys that might have been missed in the original investigation. But the mountains kept their secrets. Investigators interviewed everyone who had been in the area during the time of the disappearance. They re-examined every piece of evidence from the original case. They even brought in psychics and paranormal investigators, desperate for any lead that might explain what had happened to the grandfather and grandson. Through it all, the yellow walkie-talkie continued its endless transmission. Rangers reported hearing Tommy's voice at different times of day, always asking the same heartbreaking question. Some claimed the voice sounded more urgent at night. Others insisted it was loudest during storms. For Sarah Mitchell, Tommy's mother and Robert's daughter, the discovery brought both hope and anguish. Hearing her son's voice again after 11 years was overwhelming. She spent hours listening to the transmission, searching for any clue, any change in his words that might tell her where he was or what had happened. "Every time I hear his voice, I feel like he's still out there somewhere, still looking for his grandpa," Sarah told investigators. "But it's been 11 years. If they were alive, if they were lost, wouldn't we have found some trace of them by now?" The family hired private investigators, consulted with experts in missing persons cases, and even reached out to specialists in unexplained phenomena. Everyone who studied the case agreed on one thing: nothing about the walkie-talkie should be possible. Experts proposed various theories to explain the impossible radio transmission. Some suggested it might be an echo effect, sound waves somehow trapped in the mountain's geology and playing back years later. But audio engineers dismissed this idea, pointing out that no known geological formation could preserve and replay sound for 11 years. Others theorized about time distortions or parallel dimensions, the idea that Tommy's voice was somehow reaching across time or from another reality. While these theories captured public imagination, they had no scientific basis. The most practical explanation was that someone was deliberately transmitting the recording as an elaborate hoax. But investigators found no evidence of hidden equipment, no signs of human tampering, and no motive for such a cruel deception. Radio experts studied the transmission itself, analyzing its frequency, strength, and technical characteristics. What they found only deepened the mystery. The signal bore all the hallmarks of coming from the exact model of walkie-talkie Tommy had carried, but with impossible consistency and clarity. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a geologist from the University of Colorado, became obsessed with the case after hearing about the impossible coordinates. She assembled a team of specialists, radio engineers, search and rescue experts, and geophysicists to conduct the most thorough investigation yet attempted. Their first expedition to the signal source lasted 5 days. Using advanced GPS equipment, they pinpointed the exact location where Tommy's voice seemed to originate. Standing at those coordinates, team members described an overwhelming sense of unease, despite the ordinary appearance of the rocky outcrop. "It felt wrong," Dr. Vasquez later wrote in her field notes. like standing on the edge of something I couldn't see or understand. My equipment showed normal readings, but every instinct told me we were in a place we shouldn't be. The team set up sensitive recording equipment and monitored the transmission for 72 hours straight. What they captured would challenge everything they thought they knew about the case. At exactly 3:17 a.m. on their second night, the endless loop of, "Grandpa, where are you?" suddenly stopped. For 11 minutes, there was complete silence. Then, clear as day, they heard something new. Robert's voice, old and tired, answering his grandson. "I'm here, Tommy. I'm right here." The recording of Robert's voice sent shockwaves through the investigation. Audio analysis confirmed it was indeed the missing grandfather, but his voice carried the weight of someone far older than his 65 years. He sounded exhausted, desperate, and strangely distant. Dr. Vasquez's team rushed to replay the recording, searching for any additional clues. But by morning, the transmission had returned to its endless loop of Tommy's voice. No matter how long they waited, Robert's response never came again. The implications were staggering. If both grandfather and grandson were somehow still transmitting, where were they? How had they survived 11 years in the wilderness? And why could they only be heard at that one impossible location? Sarah Mitchell was brought to hear the recording. Her reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. "That's my father," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But he sounds so tired, so lost. What's happened to them out there?" The family demanded answers, but the investigation team had none to give. They could only confirm that both voices were authentic. Both were somehow being transmitted from coordinates that defied explanation, and both suggested that Robert and Tommy were still alive somewhere beyond their reach. Armed with this new evidence, authorities organized the largest search operation in Colorado's history. Over 200 volunteers joined professional search teams, covering a 50-mile radius around the signal source. They used helicopters, drones, thermal imaging, and ground-penetrating radar. Dr. Vasquez returned to the mysterious coordinates with even more sophisticated equipment. This time, she brought seismic sensors to detect any underground activity, electromagnetic field detectors to check for anomalies, and experimental quantum measurement devices borrowed from a physics laboratory. On the third night of their second expedition, something extraordinary happened. At 3:17 a.m., exactly the same time as before, the transmission changed again. But this time it wasn't just Robert's voice they heard. "Tommy, stay close to me. Don't wander off. But Grandpa, I can't see you." "Where are you?" "I'm right here, son. Right here." The conversation lasted 17 minutes. Dr. Vasquez's equipment recorded electromagnetic fluctuations unlike anything they'd seen before. The quantum detectors registered readings that shouldn't have been possible at sea level, suggesting the presence of matter that existed in multiple states simultaneously. It was like listening to two people having a conversation in another room, Dr. Vasquez explained to reporters. Except the room doesn't exist, and the people vanished 11 years ago. The breakthrough came when Dr. Vasquez's team discovered something remarkable about the exact spot where the transmissions originated. Using a technique called quantum field mapping, they found microscopic traces of elements that shouldn't exist in nature, isotopes that could only be created in laboratory conditions. These isotopes formed a perfect circle, exactly 3 feet in diameter, centered on the transmission coordinates. Within this circle, The very atoms of the rock seemed to vibrate at a different frequency than the surrounding stone. Geological analysis revealed another impossibility. The rock within the circle was older than the surrounding stone by approximately 10,000 years. It was as if a piece of ancient mountain had been transplanted into a newer formation, creating a temporal anomaly that defied all known laws of physics. "We're looking at a place where time itself seems to be broken," Dr. Vasquez announced at a press conference that made international news. "Something happened here that created a rift, not just in space, but in time itself." The discovery attracted attention from universities around the world. Theoretical physicists proposed that the spot might be a natural time loop, a place where events from the past could repeat infinitely. Quantum mechanics experts suggested it might be evidence of parallel dimensions bleeding into our reality. Dr. James Chen, a quantum physicist from MIT, joined the investigation with equipment that pushed the boundaries of current technology. His team's findings were published in several scientific journals, though many dismissed them as impossible. Using quantum entanglement detectors, they found that particles within the 3-foot circle were somehow connected to particles in other locations, places that seemed to exist outside normal space-time. When they tried to map these connections, the readings pointed to coordinates that led nowhere, to places that existed only in mathematical theory. Imagine a spot where the normal rules of reality have been suspended, Dr. Chen explained in a documentary about the case. Where time moves in circles instead of straight lines, where voices from the past can reach into the present, where two people can exist in a state between being lost and being found. The team attempted to communicate directly with the voices, setting up transmitters at the coordinates and broadcasting messages during the 3:17 a.m. window when Robert's voice had previously responded. For weeks, they received no answer. Then, on a foggy October night, they heard something that stopped them cold. Tommy's voice, clear and immediate. "Who's there?" "Grandpa, there's someone trying to talk to us." Robert's voice, protective and wary. "Stay quiet, Tommy. We don't know who they are." The researchers realized they might be interfering with whatever fragile existence Robert and Tommy had found in their impossible refuge. They stopped their attempts to communicate, but continued monitoring the transmissions. The truth, when it finally emerged, came from an unlikely source, a meteorologist studying weather patterns in the region. Dr. Amanda Foster had been tracking atmospheric anomalies for her climate research when she noticed something strange about the area around the transmission coordinates. Satellite data showed that weather systems consistently avoided a small area around the mysterious spot. Rain clouds would part around it. Wind patterns would shift to flow around it. Even snow seemed to fall differently in that specific location. "It's as if nature itself recognizes that this place is different," Dr. Foster explained. "The atmosphere treats it like an obstacle, even though there's nothing visible there." Further investigation revealed that the weather anomaly had existed for exactly 11 years, since the time Robert and Tommy had vanished. It was as if their disappearance had created a bubble in reality, a place where normal physical laws no longer applied. Dr. Vasquez's team realized they weren't just dealing with missing persons anymore. They were investigating a phenomenon that challenged everything science understood about the nature of reality itself. The walkie-talkie transmission wasn't just an echo from the past. It was a window into a place where past and present existed simultaneously. The most disturbing discovery came when they analyzed the quantum field data more carefully. The readings suggested that the anomaly was slowly expanding. At its current rate, the field of temporal distortion would double in size every 7 years. Today, 13 years after Robert and Tommy Mitchell vanished into the Colorado wilderness, their story has become more than just a missing persons case. It's become a scientific puzzle that continues to baffle researchers around the world. The yellow walkie-talkie remains where Jake Morrison found it, but investigators now know it's just one piece of a much larger mystery. The radio isn't the source of the transmission. It's a receiver, somehow tuned to voices that exist in a place between dimensions. Sarah Mitchell has become an advocate for families of missing persons, but her advocacy carries a unique burden. She knows her father and son are somehow still alive, still together, still lost in a place that exists on the edges of reality. But she also knows that reaching them might be impossible. "Every night at 3:17 I listen to the recordings," Sarah said in a recent interview. "Sometimes I hear new conversations, little moments between my father and my son. Tommy tells Grandpa about things he's seeing, places they're exploring. It's like they're on an eternal camping trip in a world that touches ours but never quite meets it." The scientific community remains divided about the case. Some researchers believe they're dealing with a genuine anomaly in space-time, a place where the normal rules of physics have broken down. Others maintain that there must be a conventional explanation, even if they haven't found it yet. But the evidence continues to mount. Over the years, other objects have been found in the area. A compass that points to the impossible coordinates instead of magnetic north. A camping lantern that lights up by itself during the 3:17 a.m. transmission window. Even footprints that appear in soft earth and vanish by morning. The location has become an unlikely pilgrimage site for families of missing persons. People travel from around the world to stand at the coordinates where Tommy's voice can be heard, hoping for some sign of their own lost loved ones. A small memorial has grown up around the spot where the walkie-talkie was found. Visitors leave toys for Tommy, fishing gear for Robert, and notes asking for help finding their own missing family members. Park rangers have stopped trying to remove these offerings, recognizing that the site has become something sacred to those who have lost someone to the wilderness. There's something comforting about knowing that maybe our loved ones aren't really gone, said Maria Santos, whose brother disappeared in the Cascades 5 years ago. Maybe they're just lost in a place we can't see, waiting for us to find the right frequency to hear their voices. The site attracts more than just grieving families. Paranormal investigators, quantum physicists, and documentary filmmakers make regular pilgrimages to study the phenomenon. The small town nearest to the coordinates has built an entire economy around the mystery, with hotels, restaurants, and shops catering to the thousands of visitors who come each year. But the mystery itself remains as impenetrable as ever. Despite years of investigation, millions of dollars in research funding, and the attention of some of the world's brightest scientists, no one has come any closer to understanding how Robert and Tommy Mitchell could vanish from our reality while somehow remaining within reach of our radios. Recent developments have added new layers to the mystery. In 2024, researchers detected similar anomalies in 3 other locations across the American West, places where missing persons cases remain unsolved and where sensitive equipment registers the same quantum field distortions found at the Colorado site. Each location shares certain characteristics. They're all in remote wilderness areas. All have unsolved disappearances dating back at least a decade, and all show signs of the same temporal anomalies that Dr. Vasquez first discovered. Most intriguingly, radio operators near these sites occasionally pick up faint transmissions, voices speaking words that suggest other families might be trapped in the same impossible space as Robert and Tommy. The government has quietly begun monitoring these locations, though officials refuse to comment on the nature of their interest. Satellite imagery shows permanent research stations being constructed near each site, and military-grade communication equipment has been spotted in the area. Dr. Vasquez, now leading a multi-university research consortium studying the phenomenon, believes they're on the verge of a breakthrough. "We're not just studying missing persons anymore," she said. "We're studying the nature of reality itself." These sites might be naturally occurring portals to parallel dimensions, or they might be evidence that time isn't as linear as we've always believed. The implications extend far beyond the Mitchell case. If the researchers are correct, these sites might represent a completely new understanding of physics, with applications that could revolutionize everything from space travel to communication technology. But for all the scientific excitement, the human cost of the mystery remains profound. Sarah Mitchell has aged 20 years in the 13 since her father and son vanished. She's dedicated her life to understanding their fate, but that dedication has come at enormous personal cost. "People ask me if I want them to come back," Sarah said recently. "Of course I do. But I've also come to understand that they might be exactly where they need to be. In whatever place they've found, they have each other. Tommy has his grandfather to protect him, and my father has his beloved grandson to care for. Maybe that's enough." Other families affected by similar disappearances have found both comfort and anguish in the Mitchell case. Knowing that their loved ones might still exist somewhere provides hope, but the impossibility of reaching them adds a new dimension to their grief. The psychological impact extends to the researchers as well. Dr. Vasquez admits that her work on the case has fundamentally changed her understanding of reality. When you spend years studying something that shouldn't exist, it changes how you see everything else, she explained. "I find myself questioning the nature of existence itself, wondering what other impossible things might be hiding just outside our perception." Several team members have reported strange experiences while working at the site, feelings of being watched, glimpses of movement in peripheral vision, and dreams where they find themselves standing in a vast wilderness that seems familiar but wrong somehow. As the investigation has deepened, theories about the Mitchell disappearance have evolved from simple explanations to complex hypotheses that challenge our understanding of reality itself. The leading scientific theory now suggests that certain locations on Earth might be naturally occurring thin spots where the barriers between parallel dimensions are weakened. Under specific conditions, perhaps during solar flares, atmospheric disturbances, or other cosmic events, these barriers might become permeable enough for people to slip through into alternate realities. Dr. Chen's quantum mechanics team has proposed that Robert and Tommy might exist in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously present and absent from our reality. In this state, they would be unreachable by conventional means, but might occasionally bleed through into our dimension through radio transmissions and other electromagnetic phenomena. A competing theory suggests that the sites are evidence of time loops, places where a specific moment in time repeats endlessly. In this scenario, Robert and Tommy might be trapped in their final moments before disappearing, living them over and over while remaining visible to our reality only through the radio transmissions. The most disturbing theory comes from researchers who believe the sites might be artificially created. They point to the precise mathematical relationships between the quantum field measurements and suggest that the anomalies might be the result of technology far beyond current human capabilities. "If these sites are artificial," warned Dr. Foster, "then we need to consider the possibility that Robert and Tommy weren't lost. They were taken." Recent satellite surveys have identified over 30 potential sites worldwide where similar anomalies might exist. Each location correlates with clusters of unexplained disappearances dating back decades, suggesting that the Mitchell case might be just one example of a much larger phenomenon. International teams of researchers are now investigating sites in the Canadian Rockies, the Scottish Highlands, the Siberian wilderness, and the Australian outback. Preliminary findings suggest that whatever force created the Colorado anomaly might be global in scope. The expansion of the research has led to disturbing discoveries. Historical records show that unusual disappearances in these areas date back centuries, with indigenous peoples often considering them sacred or dangerous places to be avoided. Ancient stories speak of places where people walk between worlds or become lost in the spaces between. "We might be dealing with a phenomenon that's been affecting humanity for millennia," said Dr. Vasquez. "The difference now is that we have the technology to detect and study it." The implications for understanding human history are staggering. If these sites have been causing disappearances throughout recorded time, how many missing persons cases throughout history might have similar explanations? How many people written off as lost in the wilderness might actually be trapped in parallel dimensions, waiting for someone to find the right frequency to hear their voices? As we approach the 14th anniversary of Robert and Tommy Mitchell's disappearance, their case has transformed from a local tragedy into a global scientific phenomenon. The site in Colorado now hosts researchers from 12 countries, with equipment worth millions of dollars monitoring every electromagnetic fluctuation. The transmissions continue exactly as they began. Tommy's voice asking for his grandfather, Robert's occasional responses during the 3:17 a.m. window, and the growing collection of brief conversations that suggest they're somehow still together, still exploring a wilderness that exists beyond our reach. New recordings surface regularly. Last month, researchers captured Tommy's voice describing a sunset that has colors we don't have names for. 2 weeks ago, Robert was heard teaching his grandson how to identify constellations in a sky where the stars are different. These glimpses into their impossible existence provide both comfort and heartbreak. They suggest that wherever Robert and Tommy are, they've found a way to continue their camping trip in a place where time moves differently and the rules of reality don't apply. But questions multiply faster than answers. How do they survive without food or water? Do they age in their alternate reality? Are they aware that 13 years have passed in our world? And most importantly, is there any way to bring them home? The search for Robert and Tommy Mitchell continues, but it has evolved into something far beyond a traditional missing persons investigation. Teams of physicists, engineers, and theoreticians work around the clock to understand the nature of their prison and find a way to reach them. Recent breakthroughs in quantum communication technology offer hope. Researchers believe they might soon be able to establish two-way communication with Robert and Tommy, potentially opening the door to understanding their situation and finding a way to rescue them. But the risks are enormous. Any attempt to interfere with the quantum fields that maintain their existence might sever their connection to our reality permanently. The research teams face an agonizing choice: continue studying the phenomenon safely while leaving Robert and Tommy trapped, or risk losing them forever in an attempt to bring them home. Sarah Mitchell has become the voice of families worldwide who face similar impossible choices. Her advocacy work has led to the establishment of the International Missing Persons Anomaly Research Foundation, which coordinates investigations into cases that defy conventional explanation. 13 years ago, I lost my father and my son to something we didn't understand, Sarah said at the Foundation's recent conference. Today, we understand more about what happened to them, but they're still lost. Our work isn't just about solving one mystery. It's about redefining what we think we know about the world we live in. The Foundation has documented over 400 cases worldwide that show similar characteristics to the Mitchell disappearance. Each case adds to the growing evidence that our understanding of reality is fundamentally incomplete. The Mitchell case has already begun to change how we think about missing persons investigations. Search and rescue teams now carry equipment to detect electromagnetic anomalies. Radio operators are trained to recognize transmission patterns that might indicate temporal displacement. And families of missing persons have new hope that their loved ones might still exist somewhere, even if they can't be reached. The scientific implications continue to unfold. Research inspired by the Mitchell case has led to breakthroughs in quantum mechanics, parallel dimension theory, and our understanding of time itself. The impossible coordinates where Tommy's voice originates have become one of the most studied locations on Earth. Universities around the world now offer courses in anomalous physics based on data collected from the site. The case has spawned new fields of study that bridge science and the supernatural, forcing researchers to question assumptions that have guided human understanding for centuries. But perhaps the most profound impact has been on our collective imagination. The story of Robert and Tommy Mitchell has captured hearts worldwide, reminding us that mystery still exists in our mapped and measured world. Their voices, transmitted across impossible distances from a place that shouldn't exist, speak to something deep in the human spirit. Our need to believe that love can transcend even the boundaries of reality itself. In a world where we think we have all the answers, reflected Dr. Vasquez, Robert and Tommy remind us that the most important questions haven't even been asked yet. Tonight, as every night for the past 13 years, Tommy Mitchell's voice will echo through the Colorado wilderness. Researchers will record every word, families will gather to listen, and scientists will study the impossible phenomenon that keeps his question alive. "Grandpa, where are you?" The question has become more than just a child's call for help. It's become a symbol of everyone who has ever lost someone they love. Everyone who has wondered what lies beyond the edges of our understanding. Everyone who believes that some bonds are too strong for even death or dimensional barriers to break. Robert's voice still answers when conditions are right and the quantum fields align properly. His responses suggest that wherever they are, grandfather and grandson remain together, exploring a wilderness that exists in the spaces between worlds. Their camping trip continues in a place where time moves in circles instead of straight lines, where the rules of physics bend to accommodate love, and where a toy walkie-talkie can broadcast across dimensions to remind us that some mysteries are more beautiful than any answer could ever be. And in the silence between transmissions, in the vast wilderness of the Rocky Mountains, hope echoes just as clearly as Tommy's voice. Hope that somewhere, somehow, the lost can still find their way home. But until that day comes, if it ever does, the mountains will keep their secret, and Tommy's question will continue to echo through the impossible coordinates where love transcends the very fabric of space and time. Grandpa, where are you? The answer, unheard but unwavering, comes back across dimensions. I'm here, Tommy. I'm right here.